Yo, what up, Kappa males? It's your boy Ethan from Kappa Male Cast. Um, I'm here with Finn, the child slave from Jonesy's Love Shack. So yeah, this is what my
Let me out of the
looks like.
cage for this episode.
What?
He let me out of the cage for this episode.
Yeah, but like none of the co-hosts responded to my messages, so I had to bring my
To get a
child.
child slave.
Yeah, but I said like I wouldn't feed you for this month if you didn't come on. Yeah, so I would have just not recorded, but we have a special guest on who's meant to come on like ages ago, but we kept delaying. And by the time this gets out, Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be like old news, but like whatever. So yeah, uh, I'll just totally come on. Welcome. Yeah. Hello.
Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, lads. The epic special guest is on. Everyone, welcome Nix the Druid.
Hi.
So we've been trying to get you on for a while, but like things kept popping up. Had exams. So some of you may recognize the name Nix the Druid if you've seen Jonesy's Love Shack, although that episode isn't out yet by the time we're recording. But we've brought you on today to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse, the epic case that you might have some insight on because of your studying criminal justice.
And I do a lot of personal research just because I think this kind of stuff is very interesting, especially because I'm one of those big I'm a big civil rights person. I'm one of those people. I like things to be fair, and so this case was very interesting with that because it could be fair from both sides, and it's really just how Wisconsin law specifically defines each part of it that made the case turn out the way it did. You know?
Yeah, based. So, why don't you tell us a bit about like how this situation started? I mean, before the arrest and everything, how did Kyle ends up in the incident?
So he went to Kenosha during the riots that night. I do not remember the exact date. He went to the riots that night, and originally it had started that they were protecting a car dealership. He had been invited by one of his friends, Jacob Black, to come to Kenosha and help protect other businesses. They were specifically protecting a car dealership. But him and around 10 other people were there, and there was a group photo, a specific group photo of them that was actually used as one of the pieces of evidence in the trial. Well, eventually he got separated from the group, and there's not really much known. Really, the only thing we have between the time that he got separated from the group and the time that the first video of the first shooting happened, there's not really anything else besides Rittenhouse's testimony to really tell anything about that, and it's not really like important. It was honestly just him going around doing like helping cleaning up graffiti and stuff, giving first aid, things like that. But something had happened, an altercation of some sort, and it began with the first the first the first video that they used as evidence during the trial was when he was running away from the group. He was trying to get back to one of the car dealership lots, and somebody was chasing him. Well, the person chasing him, which was one of the people that he shot — I'm really bad with names, at remembering names, I'm bad at that. But one of the people the first person that he shot had thrown a plastic bag full of clothes. Well, it coincidentally at that same time another gunfire had went off. And so Rittenhouse turned and pointed his weapon, and the man continued to advance toward him. And so Rittenhouse shot him 4 times, once in the back. And then he continued to run. Well, a crowd followed. This is when he attempted to fire at someone who had attempted to jump essentially on him and stomp on him, from what I could tell from the video. And he missed the fire on that gunshot, and then that person ran off. And that's when the person who had the skateboard went to attack him and was shot twice, I believe. It was either once or twice. And then collapses in the back of the video.
Yeah.
And then after that, the EMT that was also armed approached Rittenhouse, believing that he was an active shooter. Based on his testimony, believed that he was an active shooter and was going to attempt to either defuse the situation or disarm him. And when he approached Rittenhouse, he approached him with his hands up, with his weapon visible.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, then shot him once, non-lethally, and did a great bit of damage to the upper part of his bicep in his left arm, I believe. And from that point, there's not really much between the arrest and that. There's nothing really that was contributed to the case from that point.
Okay. So he killed 2 people?
Yes.
So the situation was the BLM riots were going on, and he was kind of protecting the car dealership?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so a bunch of right-wing like social media groups, they put out that they were getting groups of people to help protect from looters and rioters and such at the protests.
Mm-hmm.
I have the list of charges here. I gotta find it.
That Kyle was charged with?
Can I see the list of felonies? He was originally charged with 5 charges, but 2 were dropped. The 2 misdemeanor charges.
Mm-hmm.
But he did end up killing 2 people. One died on scene, and one died, I think, on the way to the hospital, if I'm correct. That was not really brought up in the case. I think that was something that somewhere else. I feel But yeah. Where are the charges? Rosenbaum, Joseph Rosenbaum was the first person that was shot. The one who threw the plastic bag that was shot 4 times and once in the back.
Yeah.
I found the names. You have a list. And then Anthony Huber was the man with the skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's say one was
So
like a child predator or something.
so that is not. Here's the thing. Regardless of what was going on in their lives prior, it has nothing to do with the Rittenhouse case. Therefore, it could not and should not have been considered in court at all, and it wasn't. Regardless of what your the EMT who was shot non-fatally, he had aggravated assault charges and whatnot. Regardless of that, it should not have ended up with people dying. And so I don't really necessarily believe that that's important at all,
Yeah, fair
because
enough.
because it could have been anybody else. It just so happened that that one or possibly two of, I don't know if the two that were fatally shot had any charges, but I know that the non-fatally shot person did.
Mm-hmm.
But it could have happened. It could have been any person with anything. So it's kind of an objective standpoint, and people tend to use that to essentially say that Rittenhouse was in the right. They will use that as their one defense rather than anything that had to do with the actual shooting. And so that is a very politicized thing, to a way to look at it because of that.
Yeah. It's kind of looking for a justification for the murders. So, he gets arrested, he gets taken to court. And so take us through what
Mm-hmm.
happens at court. I mean, there are certain defenses he used.
So
Yeah.
So he pleaded for self-defense, which of course in the state of Wisconsin, they have to use something that the defense, which would be Rittenhouse, have to use something called affirmative defense. So that means that the defense must produce some sort of evidence that the jury can use to find that self-defense was applied. This is referred to as the burden of production. But then the prosecution must then try to prove that self-defense, disprove the self-defense claim beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest that you can get with the law, because you never 100% know. So beyond a reasonable doubt is how they essentially decide on it. Which of course, when they're bringing in all of this, the laws that have to do with this are the biggest factors that come into play here, because Wisconsin does not have duty to retreat laws. Duty to retreat laws are referring to laws that if you are in a situation where you are being attacked, very minimal states have this. I think it's maybe like 10 states at most still have duty to retreat laws, where in order to claim self-defense, with duty to retreat laws, you have to be able to prove without or beyond a reasonable doubt that you had no other way of getting out of the situation. But Wisconsin does not have those laws. So essentially, in that case, then it comes down to, was Rittenhouse a perpetrator? Because at this point now it is, you have to look at it as Wisconsin law says that the perpetrator cannot use self-defense unless great bodily harm is threatened upon them by the person that they are provoking. So in this case, whatever Rittenhouse did to provoke the attack in the first place, the initial chase, he would not be able to claim self-defense if this is the one part where duty to retreat laws do exist, and it's kind of a exception to the law, but there is also an exception to that exception. So since Rittenhouse did attempt to retreat, therefore he was then able to claim self-defense when he was originally the provoker. The only case where this could not be applied is if he had been using great bodily harm against the person originally. So since he did not technically by law do anything to infer, or nor did he attempt to kill somebody originally or cause great bodily harm, he was able to claim self-defense. And so the jury was able to look at that from that standpoint. Of course, when you become a juror, you get a list that is the laws that apply to the case, and it's very, very simplified where it's easy to read. And so they were able to see this exception and be able to look at it from the video from all of the evidence presented, whether or not Rittenhouse was able to retreat. And they ultimately, which we don't know if they did reach that last exception to the self-defense claim, then they would have to see beyond a reasonable doubt that Rittenhouse was unable to retreat from the attacks.
Okay. So was he able to retreat?
Objectively, from my personal standpoint, I have a feeling that he could have at one point, but it was too late, honestly. So I don't personally believe that he could have retreated, but I am also in that middle ground of belief that he shouldn't have been there in the first place, but he has a right to be there. So, but then also it kind of goes into the thing of, with the non-fatal shooting, the fog of war, which is essentially, there was a case where, or there was a situation where a man almost shot somebody that was restraining a armed perpetrator, and he almost shot him. So that is also something that had to be considered in the case, and that was brought up in the trial, the essential fog of war of Rittenhouse being in the situation of, okay, well, these people are trying to attack me, as where the people who he shot and essentially the group that followed him, where the non-fatal shooting and the last fatal shooting occurred, because the EMT, he claimed in his testimony that he was notified that there was an active shooter. And of course, being a first responder, your first response to that is going to be to go and shut that down as fast as possible with as few people getting hurt as possible. So it's kind of that standpoint of the jury had to consider whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse was being an active shooter or was genuinely defending himself, and the fog of war kind of put that barrier of misunderstanding between the two parties.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So is he considered to be the person who started the shootout?
So I watched most of the trial. Like, I watched the live feed of most of the trial, and the prosecution, which is the state of Wisconsin, tried to only pull evidence that kind of showed that. So originally, Judge Schroeder, he had dismissed certain. So judges can say in their courtroom what parts of evidence are allowed, because if it is not one directly included in the case. So the prosecutor attempted to bring in a video where Rittenhouse, about 2 weeks before the shootings occurred, had taken a video and posted it on social media, of what looks to be like two people robbing a store, and he had made a comment about wishing he could shoot them. That evidence was not able to be used in court.
Yep.
So any evidence that kind of didn't have to do with the shootings themselves wasn't really included. But from what I understand, I think that it was kind of a thing of the prosecution was saying that he started it and the defense was saying that he didn't.
And what they concluded that he didn't.
I'm going to, at this point, that is not something that is public knowledge, because that was up to the jury, essentially, of whether or not he started it. So that would have been something that they would have discussed in jury deliberations before they decided the final ruling.
Okay. So, what are some of the defenses that Rittenhouse used?
So, so for the first person that he killed, Joseph Rosenbaum, the one who threw the plastic bag at him. So his claim with self-defense was that Rosenbaum continued to pursue him and was possibly going to take his firearm and use it against him.
Yeah.
So that was his first claim of self-defense for that. And then, of course, with Huber, the man with the skateboard, that one's kind of shown in the video clips. Huber did attack Rittenhouse with a skateboard. It is clear in the video of what is happening. So it's kind of a situation of you kind of have to make a guess of what would have happened if Rittenhouse would not have shot him. Huber could have continued to beat him with the skateboard and could have caused death or great bodily harm, which is needed for a self-defense claim. And of course, in the video, Rittenhouse was on the ground, so at that point he could not retreat. Like, physically he couldn't, unless and if he would have attempted to, the amount of people that were attempting to attack him or disarm him, depending on what how you want to look at it, he could not have retreated from them at all, and so he was able to claim self-defense on that part. The self-defense claim with the EMT, Turner, Gage Grosskreutz, I think that's how you say it. I'm not quite sure, but Rittenhouse testified that he believed that Gage would have also taken his weapon and used it against him, and with deadly force. So he was able to claim self-defense in that sense, and since he was still on the ground at this time, he could not retreat. So it was his testimony for self-defense. It has a good basis. It has a good base because in the for the second fatal shooting and the non-fatal shooting, he was surrounded by a crowd on the ground. The first shooting, that is kind of up to the jury to decide, because from the video itself, it appears just a man running at him, throwing a bag at him, and then continuing, and then Rittenhouse shoots him. And of course, the other videos, you can see the two running behind the cars and then gunshots. So at that point, it was kind of up to the jury to decide if that would have been what happened. Essentially, a lot of that's why the court system uses beyond a reasonable doubt, because we cannot know 100% for sure what would have happened in that, but I but the jury saw beyond a reasonable doubt that Rittenhouse was using self-defense.
Yeah, interesting. So, how did the courts react to this? What was the result of these claims? Yeah,
So Rittenhouse was found not guilty on all 5 charges, but 2 of the charges were dropped. The 2 misdemeanor charges, which people put way more emphasis on than they should have. The first charge was a minor carrying a deadly weapon. So
yeah,
Wisconsin law allows minors to possess a rifle or shotgun as long as it is not short barreled. So Rittenhouse was within his full right to carry the weapon.
yeah,
And the second misdemeanor charge was breaking curfew, which of course many people were. So you can't really press that charge onto him, which of course the prosecution was attempting to do. But on the count, where are the? I have a list of the actual charges themselves because I can't remember if it was manslaughter. Can I see? But during the trial, the self-defense. So part of the issue with the way that the trial ended up was that many people believe, and based on watching the trial myself, I can understand why people see this, is that the prosecution was essentially attempting to get a mistrial for misconduct after a certain point when they knew that they probably were not going to win. The prosecuting lawyer, he kind of then began to break more of the rules within the courts that Judge Schroeder set. So bringing up the evidence from before, like the video I mentioned earlier, and there was something else. Oh, it was a certain line of questioning. Essentially, he had asked Rittenhouse. So this is the first time that you are telling your side of the story, which is a very leading line of questioning, which most judges would not allow because it presents kind of a biased point of view to the jury.
yeah. So, what were the other charges?
Trying to find my note because I had it written down. Okay, I found it. Where'd it go? So he first degree intentional homicide.
Okay.
It was first degree intentional homicide, attempted first degree intentional homicide, which was the non-fatal shooting, first degree reckless homicide, which would have been the person that he shot that had the skateboard, first degree recklessly endangering safety. So the shot that he missed when the person attempted to essentially stomp on him, and any other shots that would have been made during the whole thing. And then first degree recklessly endangering safety. So he had 2 charges of that. So that would have been in between. That would have been from that initial shot that didn't hit the person trying to stomp on him, and then where he non-fatally shot Gage.
Yeah. So how did the rest
And
of
then, of
those?
course, the minor carrying a firearm, and then those were the 5 felonies. Technically, I think he had 7 or 8 charges, but the other 2 or 3 were the minor carrying a firearm and the breaking curfew charges.
Yeah. Any interesting things that happened during the trial that we haven't mentioned yet?
Can you repeat that again, please? I'm
Oh,
sorry, it cut
it's
out.
okay. Are there any interesting things that happened during the trial that we haven't mentioned yet? Technical difficulties, lads. Oh, we're back. Hello? You there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, can you please repeat what you said again? I'm sorry.
that's all right. Are there any interesting things that happened during the trial that we didn't talk about?
So one of it was an interesting part, definitely, but it had to have been my favorite part of the whole trial.
Yeah.
Was Judge Schroeder dismissing the jury, asking, essentially being asked for them to be taken into the jury deliberation room, so that he could yell at the prosecuting attorney for not following his courtroom rules, because of course the judge has the final say on what is allowed in court. And so, of course, when you start to bring up evidence that you were told that you're not allowed to use, or using a certain line of questioning, he was chastised for it. And so many people saw that as kind of a thing of Schroeder taking Rittenhouse's side. But
Yeah.
other lawyers within the Kenosha area put out statements essentially saying that this is how Schroeder is. He's very loud, like it's just how he is. But pretty much the trial itself was very cut and dry. There wasn't really anything that was there wasn't really anything big besides Rittenhouse admitting that he shot them intentionally,
Mm.
which of course allowed him to still use the claim of self-defense, because in self-defense you will, like, if you shoot somebody in self-defense, you are intentionally doing it. So that was kind of a thing that the prosecution tried to play off of, that led into a line of questioning that made Rittenhouse sound really guilty until the defense was able to pull in their line of questioning and essentially elaborated on the questions that the prosecution was originally asking. So honestly, the prosecution was a mess. Like I feel like the outcome could have been different if there was a better prosecutor, but this prosecutor, he kind of went off rails and was very he didn't seem to really ask good questions, in my opinion. um the lines of questioning were just very odd. They didn't there was really no it didn't seem as if they were really trying to prosecute him, in my opinion. I mean, they are the prosecuting attorneys, but it just did not seem like they were trying as hard as they could have. um but then of course, it was brought up after the fact, whether or not Rittenhouse essentially is a vigilante. That's one part of the self-defense claim that was very important, because if you are a vigilante, the self-defense claim is kind of hard to use, but Rittenhouse did not fully meet the requirements for it. He almost did. So his self-defense claim was still be able to use. So the vigilante kind of line of questioning was dismissed by the judge for being kind of a leading line of questioning.
Yo, I know it's late over there in America, so I'll let you go. But thanks a lot for coming on. This was some fascinating insight.
I do have a little fun fact, if you would
Yeah.
like a little fun. So, statistically, white perpetrators with black victims, this is just a little food for thought, white perpetrators with black victims are 281 more percent likely to be found not guilty than a black perpetrator with a white victim. So it is kind of,
Interesting.
it does become more of a politicized thing because of, you look at numbers like that, how would have the Rittenhouse trial turned out if Rittenhouse wasn't white?
Yeah.
Food for thought.
Yes.
Well, anyways, thank you for coming on and talk about what I've been studying and suffering through for the past couple of months.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Bye, guys.
See ya. All right, lads. Buddy, like, he has left the call the whole time, but
I was in the call the entire time, but what do you mean?
yeah, Bobby didn't say anything the whole time.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about Kyle Rittenhouse. I've literally just been playing CSGO this entire time.
Actually, a menace, kid.
Yeah, but I know. I'm a menace to society.
Oh, for real.
No, but I was listening when I was playing. But I've played Terraria, I've played Valorant, and I've played CSGO. But I was listening.
I've been playing Terraria for 7 days now.
Killing yourself.
It's a good game. But I haven't actually played it in that time. Like, I haven't played it like 6 days. It's just been on my computer for 7 days.
Like, why do you have it open?
Because I feel like it.
Ah, shit on.
So why don't you tell the audience about why you're on the episode today?
Because I broke Ethan's mic and I wanna don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, but this kid literally just dropped my mic that he was borrowing for like months. This kid's actually ungrateful.
But it was an accident. But I didn't even drop
Yeah,
it. It
but
just
just like
fell off
you.
my. What?
Just like you.
What?
You're an accident.
That was not funny.
Like you.
But I didn't even drop it. It fell off my desk, and
Alright.
then it
Somebody
broke.
will say.
And but I literally spent like almost like 3 hours trying to fix it.
By excuses.
Useless.
Yeah, well, this is like part of your debt repayment. Coming on the best
Yeah.
podcast in the world.
Yeah. What a great podcast that everybody is going to watch. Everyone cares about what some random American
It's just really
an
random.
Australian neckbeard and a sexy Chad thinks
Like,
about
you're not a neck.
Kyle Rittenhouse. What?
I think you misspoke. You're not actually a neckbeard.
Oh no, I was talking about you.
Oh, but you're actually a sussy soy boy.
So was that your attempt at comedy?
Was that your attempt at coping?
I was literally bashing
No, but
about counter-terrorists when you get shit on, buddy.
so why don't you tell the audience about how much you troll on Roblox when you were like 10?
Well, yeah, I used to go. I used to go to cafe Roblox games, and I would go up to the counter, and in the cafe Roblox games, there's an actual menu, and you can buy stuff, and you like role play eat. And then I used to go there with my friends, and we would make ourselves have like extremely ugly avatars, and we'd look like rats and stuff, and wear like pea shirts, and then say we were like rat piss drinks, and then and then the workers there they would get like proper angry,
You're
and
actually feral.
what
You're feral.
and they would get like proper angry, and they would take it like so seriously, and it was really funny, to just make fun of them. Wow, I'm so good. Fanboy Fan 900 on top. Holy shit. I just got a 4K clutch. Get shit on.
Actually,
What?
you got a 4K first.
A 4K clutch.
That's crazy.
But yeah, on those cafe roller games, we would wear like piss shirts that have like piss all over them, and we would ask for rat piss drinks or like rat poo burgers, and they would get like extremely angry, and then in like 2018, I got Roblox hacks, and then I would just explode the entire cafe, and I would you could get there was a script on Roblox where you could get a white van and kidnap people with like clowns in the car, and they would like drug you. And every time a worker told me to stop, I would just make them get kidnapped by clowns and get them drugged. And I would just ban them, and they got like extremely angry.
Well, can you like edit the texture of the sky on Roblox if you hacked it?
But yeah, I remember the reason I got into hacking was because when I was like 9, I was playing Prison Life on Roblox, and some guy turned the sky to a picture of Hitler, and then he changed it to a picture of a naked woman, and a bunch of like really really young kids in the lobby, and and they were all just like spamming chat. So I was like, oh, what if I did this? So then I just figured out how to hack, and I spent $20 on Synapse X, which is a Roblox hack, and I still have it. And I just aimbot on Phantom Forces because I'm goated.
You actually, you need to touch grass.
Oh no, I'm just goated. But
You hack on a Roblox.
no, but yeah, but like it's only to like trigger kids.
That's what they all say.
Oh shit on! Holy shit!
So you're like a TikTok star.
Yeah, I'm extremely famous on TikTok, buddy. Go follow me at sexy Chadman the second. No spaces.
Yeah, good thing I just censored that. Get trolled. We do a little trolling.
You're not good enough at editing to censor things.
You literally just add like a censor sound over it and mute it. But it's
Yeah,
easy.
but you're extreme. Wow. Yeah, but you're extremely dumb. So
Says the kid who's cringe.
you
Get
drive right
wrecked.
on me. What?
Get wrecked, kid.
But I didn't get wrecked. I literally just puffed. Blah 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 blah. But I didn't even get the diffuse off. That's so gay.
So, buddy, you've been making a lot of videos about Gwen from Turtle Drama Island.
But yeah, she's my waifu. Literally. But um uh Cody is actually my spirit animal, buddy.
Yeah, what is that?
What?
Who's Cody?
But you don't know Cody, but have you even watched Turtle Drama? Are you dumb?
Yeah, but like, why is he a spirit animal?
But because he stems for goth women.
By the old power. And you've also made a lot of videos, where you eat fecal matter.
Yeah.
So can you please explain a bit more about that?
Nah. But I would rather not.
No, buddy, you have to pay for the full mic unless you do it.
Oh, fine. Well,
But
I've
welcome, Xzavious. How you doing, mate?
Hi, how you doing?
Some of you may recognize Xzavious from previous Jonesy's Love Shack episodes, so it's great to have you back on the show.
Hello. I'll turn on my camera 1 sec.
So yeah, Finn, what were you saying before?
I would rather not.
You'd rather not what?
Continue.
Continue what?
I don't know. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Oh, I can remind
So,
you.
no, thank you.
Okay, so it's basically about lots of videos of you online claiming to eat the fecal matter of Gwen from Drama Island.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I mean,
I would never.
I can put a clip up or like put it in the description,
Okay, do it. You won't.
but I will.
Okay.
What about eating what?
I don't
Finn,
know what
why
he's
don't you
talking.
explain a bit?
I don't know what he's talking about. I would never do such a thing. I would
Look
never.
up diagonal syndrome on TikTok and you just scroll and you
But
see
that's not even my username. Are you dumb?
it. What is it?
I'm not telling you.
Buddy. But it literally is diagonal syndrome.
But I've never even had an account on TikTok called Diagonal Syndrome. It's my YouTube.
It did.
But no, it was Nomicus.
But look up Nomicus with three.
But that account got banned. All the accounts with the name Nomicus got banned. I'm not even joking.
What did you do?
But I don't know. But I made fun of this TV show, and then a bunch of like 8-year-olds reported me, and I'm banned. And then I made fun of Carl from Mr. Beast, and then all Carl's fanboys reported me as well.
Wow. Hey, Xzavious, did you
Yeah.
see Mr. Beast's Squid Game video? It's blowing up.
No, I have not. I know it's coming out though. I have not seen it though.
It's pretty crazy. Costs like $3.5 million just to make.
Jeez.
And they're saying Netflix might
I
sue him.
wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I haven't even looked at the original Squid Games. I
Me
just
neither.
wasn't interested in it.
Yeah. Too Korean. Do you watch like K-pop?
No, I don't really like that type of stuff.
Yeah, big cringe. Big cringe. So I put out an announcement with some of the topics we may have on this episode.
Mhm.
And you DM me
Yeah.
saying you wanted to talk about some of it. So like, what was an interesting topic that you had an epic take on?
All of them are really interesting to be honest. They're all issues that, um, if you say something that someone dislikes, you get some high backlash and whatnot. Especially if you talk anything about the trans community.
Well, everyone, make sure to put your opinions in the comments and start arguments to get the engagement up. That'll be big book. Well, here's a question, right?
Yeah.
Here is a question. Should transgender people be allowed in the military?
Yes,
Right.
but but they shouldn't expect, you know, for example, women have a harder time to get into the Marine Corps and actually like be soldiers out in the field just because the test is so brutal and a lot of women in a sense can't just pass, and they shouldn't lower those standards either for it because it keeps people alive, you
Yeah.
know. But a someone that is transitioned into a man and whatnot, and if they don't make it in the test, I don't think they should be able to complain about that in a sense as well. Also, when it comes to transgenders inside the military, there also should be the fact that they've had to be on hormones for a certain amount of time, possibly,
Hmm.
because if you are in mid transition in the military, you tend to become more of a liability because there is a lot of just mental things happening during that time.
Yeah. What do you think, Finn?
Well, I think transgender people should be able to be in the military, but like the entire reason Trump made it so trans people can't be in the military is because hormones like testosterone and estrogen like you can't transition in a lot of the countries that they're like in war with and where they're positioned, so they can't really like properly transition. So I think if they want to transition, but they also want to be in the army or like the military, they shouldn't like expect to be able to transition. But if they're okay with not like transitioning, then I guess they can do it. But they shouldn't expect to be able to.
You don't have to follow the laws of the country invading anyway.
Oh yeah,
Well,
you
yeah,
don't
but
have.
it'd be like a lot more difficult to like get them, like the hormones,
What do you mean?
like to what part of that don't you get?
Like, what would be hard about it?
Getting it because it's like if you're in a country that has a bunch of war, then I imagine it'd be a lot harder to get testosterone and estrogen.
But if they're already transitioned, they don't need it.
No, but I mean like if they're mid transition.
Okay.
But if they're okay with not transitioning at all, or if they're already transitioned, then they should be able to.
Okay. Well, I've heard the argument. It is a bit sussy. It sounds kind of transphobic, and I'm not transphobic. Uh,
But unbased,
epic rights. What?
unbased.
Well, I'm based. But basically, the argument goes that uh, the military spends lots of money on each individual soldier, and so each soldier is an investment. And so when you're investing in something, you have to take into consideration lots of factors, and one of those factors is how likely they are to commit suicide. And because there's such a high likelihood that they will commit suicide, it's not a worthy investment. I mean, it sounds kind of like messed up because it's like a market of people.
Well,
It's,
the thing is, if they just let anyone into the military and they end up dying, the military can get in trouble for that. That is why they do all those like checks and whatnot. They don't want to have, these issues because in in war and whatnot with the military, every body counts and they're accounting for every single body because they're trying to bring home as many alive soldiers as possible.
uh,
They understand that there will be casualties, but if you are bringing someone with mental illnesses and whatnot, and trans people tend to have mental illnesses because either their family wasn't very supportive of it, or they weren't able to understand really about until a way later age and whatnot, and they just never felt comfortable in their own body and whatnot,
yeah,
but they have these mental illnesses and whatnot. Depression is definitely one of those high ones, and other people that have depression and whatnot aren't really allowed in the military either. There are those restrictions when it comes to mental illnesses and whatnot to keep
so people who are
because
confirmed depressed not allowed in the
trans.
military.
Hmm?
Depressed people allowed in the military.
No, no, they're
Fascinating.
not.
I mean, maybe it's for the best.
Well, yeah, like if they've been diagnosed with severe uh, depression from a psychologist and whatnot, and they're on antidepressants and whatnot, there's a likely chance of them not allowing to go into the military and whatnot. And if they are in the military, it's not going to be uh, fields where they actually go out and whatnot overseas. It's going to be more something based in the U.S.
Yeah, sure. Well, another question: is a common religion needed for a country to be successful?
No.
No,
Is a common religion, so like a whole country being united into one religion, necessary for it to be successful?
no,
Why?
Not necessarily.
Why?
Religion is more of a sense kind of helping to find a common interest between everyone in a sense. Not really a common interest, but something that everyone has in common to make things feel more calm and whatnot. But whenever you have other countries where, there is more diversity, such as like America and whatnot, where religion, in a sense, is free, um,
Mhm.
you know, you don't need to have that common religion. You just have to have a common idea of something, because the thing is with religion, whenever everyone has a common thing and then you have someone from an outside point that has a different religion, you know people get scared. That's why a lot of wars really back then, were started and whatnot, and how people, or how, the English also, you know and the Spanish, justified killing and all that other stuff that they did to Native Americans in the U.S., because they found them as savages because they did not practice the same religion and whatnot, and they forced them to learn that religion so they wouldn't be so savage
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Oh, savage, bruh. I'm Savage 100.
don't kill yourself.
um, no, the argument could be, of course, religions may be like xenophobic towards other religions,
Oh
but
yeah,
if that's true, wouldn't it be better for there to be one religion per country so that, I mean, say religions go to war with each other, if they're part of the same country, then that would also be a civil war.
yes. But the thing is, whenever it's already introduced inside the country itself, it tends to be a lot more tame. For example, you have most of the people in India being Hindu, but you also have Buddhists in India. And they don't really collide because they've been existing around one another for, you know, years and years and years and years. They're not going to end up really having a civil war on that.
Yeah.
As long as these countries um, have had a lot of years to be more open to other ideas because there's other religions and whatnot, you're not going to have as often conflicts and whatnot. You may discriminate and whatnot against someone that doesn't believe in your religion, but you're not gonna want to kill them in a sense,
Yeah. I
because
mean,
they have more of an understanding. People have different ideas.
yeah. I mean, I totally agree. If you look at countries ranked by rates of atheism, I mean, the highest countries are places like Estonia and Czechia and Japan, and these are all very economically successful places. And when you look at the leaderboard of religiosity, it's mostly sub-Saharan African countries and Muslim countries, which are less successful. And of course, they're successful um, Muslim countries, but mostly because of oil.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think, Finn?
I, I don't know.
Cringe. So another question, right?
Mm.
Should it be socially acceptable to be a furry?
No,
Why?
It's sussy.
I think it is, but also I feel like you should be ready for ridicule and whatnot.
If one of my friends told me they were furry, I would relentlessly make fun of them because that's weird.
Also, it depends on how far they are in a furry, because if you have them in a fursuit, or you have them wearing like a weird fucking dog mask and being walked around and whatnot on a fucking leash, that shit's pretty fucking weird. You definitely should be called out on that being fucking weird, because, I don't know. Sometimes furries really touch the line of bestiality with that too. It's just really fucking weird.
Yeah. So the thing is, people have been making these arguments for like decades and decades and centuries about other groups like gay people, for example, saying it's weird that they're gay, so it's bad. And some gay people are off doing weird things in public, so therefore being gay is bad. And people nowadays are kind of making the same arguments about furries. I mean, look,
I can kind of see where they're going with that, but there's a very vastly big difference between, being gay and being a furry. Because furry isn't a sexuality. That is a weird kink in a sense. But you don't have people that have blood kinks or, have other type of kinks, showing that around out about out in public in a sense all the time,
yeah,
because it's taboo. It's something meant more for the bedroom and whatnot and sexual pleasure. That's the thing with being a furry. It's it's like more of the argument of people trying to say maps trying to say that they should be more accepted and whatnot.
yeah. Maps being minor attracted people.
It's not similar in a sense, but it also is because furries in a sense, like I said, they really sometimes tread the line between being a furry and fucking animals.
Yeah. But should it be considered wrong to be a furry that doesn't commit bestiality?
I mean, I don't think it should be considered wrong. I don't think like anything like actually really wrong with it, but it's sort of weird. I won't hate someone for being a fairy, but I'll make fun of them.
Yeah, I would never hate someone for being a furry. I'd make fun of them, and it doesn't make any sense why you would want to be, you know, we're all animals already. I don't know why you want to be a fucking person in a fucking wolf suit
Yeah,
or
I mean,
wearing. I don't know if any of you guys seen any of those like TV shows time to times where they would show off like people that generally like they wear like little harness gimp things, and they're just wearing like shorts a lot of times, and they fucking have these weird like little dog masks with ears and whatnot, and there's like a bunch of them, and they all play like they're in like a little dog park and whatnot, and they have like fucking kennels there, and they have those fucking meetings and whatnot. That shit's so fucking creepy and weird
look,
because
I'm
that means
against kink in public, because there are kids around. But it's totally fine if they're in private.
yeah, I'm more okay with that in a sense whenever it's private, but like it tend being a furry is more of a kink than it because it's not a sexuality at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, being a fairy doesn't have to have anything like really with a sexuality or a kink. But I mean, like if someone just wants to dress up as a wolf or a fox or some shit, I don't really care. But if someone is like proper attracted to animals and their kink is dressing up like an animal, then that's really weird. But if someone is doing it like sexually and just likes dressing up as animals, it's pretty weird.
Well,
But
I
I
don't
don't
I
think it's
don't really
really wrong.
consider I don't really consider the people that just dress up as like wolves and whatnot as like just a furry, because really the definition of being a furry and whatnot is it has the sexual side. It's legitimately a fetish. It is a kink. That is what a furry being a furry is.
A lot of furries don't actually have a furry kink, you know. Like, so of course, some of them have intercourse in their fursuits, but many of them don't.
Well, it's not only that, but they also enjoy like hentais of anthropomorphic people as well.
I mean, I think there are just a lot of people that just like dressing up as animals, like as a hobby. It doesn't have to have anything, like sexually. They just like doing it. But I don't know.
This is the definition I'm reading. It's just someone who dresses up as animals. It doesn't have to be sexual. But if it is, that's fine. As long as it's not in public.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's fine. I think that's really weird, even if it's in private.
Yeah, it's
But I
weird.
mean,
But what's
but as long as
bad
it's
about it?
as long as it's legal, I don't really care. As long as they're not doing anything with like actual animals.
Ever, let anyone do whatever they want to do to be happy. Just, also be ready to be really ridiculed, just like everyone
Yeah.
else gets ridiculed for things that make them happy, in a sense that doesn't have to do with race or, sexuality.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. So, hope you guys enjoy this episode of Kappa Cast. Smash the like, smash sub. Join the server down below if you want to get on the show, or look at epic memes or whatever. So, thanks everyone for coming on, and I'll see you later.
And also, my YouTube is in the description. Subscribe.
It's not. Sorry.
But put it in the description. But
It's
do
not.
it.
Oh no.
Yes, it is.
Okay, sure.
All right, guys. It's diagonal.